BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hi everyone, it's Robbie Savage here. Thanks for listening in. We're recording these podcasts from our homes during the lockdown, so you might hear the occasional doorbell, dog, washing machine or a child in the background. Well, I'm sat at home and still lucky enough that a lot of my former teammates and opponents still talk to me, so I'm going to get them on the line and put your questions to them. Well, unless they've changed their numbers, of course. We're going to kick off this series with a man who can sit among a collection of players like, listen to this list, Messi, both Ronaldos, Zidane, Baggio, Van Basten, Best, Charlton, to have won the Ballon d'Or, the most prestigious individual award for a footballer.
Martin Atkinson still doesn't blow the final whistle. Rooney again with a high ball. Ferdinand has stayed forward, looking to... he didn't get off the ground though, Ferdinand. Ryan Giggs into Owen. Owen for Venture wins the game. Michael Owen scores for Manchester United. Deep into added time. Probably the last kick of the match. Michael Owen, veteran of Merseyside derbies, in his first Manchester derby, has stolen it right at the end here.
He played for Liverpool, Real Madrid, Newcastle United, Manchester United, Stoke City and England. At Anfield, he made his debut in 1996 and scored 118 goals in 216 games before leaving in 2004. He famously won his first England cap in 1998 and went on to score 40 goals in 89 games over 10 years. Hello to my friend Michael Owen. That's a pretty impressive CV, mate.
Thank you, Sav. That is the best introduction I think I've ever had. Love it.
Mate, that is such an impressive CV. You know, when you started out in your grassroots football, did you ever imagine that you would accomplish all that, what I've just read out?
Well, I think when you're a youngster, you're just wanting to be a professional footballer. Of course, most players, want to be the best player in the world, and you have all these different dreams, don't you? And I think I was no different to that. I always had targets, high targets. I wanted to score in World Cups and win the World Cup and win the Premier League and all these different competitions. So I think I always dreamt of it. I'd be lying if I said that at a young age I wasn't way ahead of the game, let's say, way ahead of all the lads that I was playing with. And then getting into the England team at 15, thinking, wow, am I good enough for this? Then going to trials and getting in. And then all of a sudden, you break the all-time England goal-scoring record at under 15. You think, wow, I'm better than all of these as well. I think it's just step by step. You gradually realise that you're a very good player. And then, of course, when you're 14, 15, 16 and you're pulling up trees, basically, at the time, you're thinking, right, well, it's not a question of if I'm going to be a footballer, it's how good a professional footballer am I going to be? And that was always the question.
And I tell you what, mate, you weren't bad at all. Ballon d'Or winner. Right, Michael, this is all about the fans putting questions to you. So let's get straight to them. Richard Wheatley and James Nichols wanted to ask the same question to kick us off, and it's something that caused debate on social media. How did it feel not to be included in the top 10 BBC Match of the Day goal scorers? And who were your top three and why?
A tricky question to start with. Well, to be honest, I haven't lost sleep over not being in the top 10, I must admit. I mean, you read out a few nice accolades I've won over my time, so, I'm not too bothered not to be in those. I mean, I think when I look at the stats or whatever, I would be in the top 10 of all-time Premier League goal scorers. And I think that's what the accolade was, the top goal scorers or best goal scorers or whatever it was. So I'm in the top 10 stat-wise. Of course, it's somebody's opinion, and that's absolutely fine. That's the game we're in, isn't it? Who's my all-time top three Premier League strikers? You have to say Alan Shearer, Thierry Henry would be standout two for me. And then third, I mean, in terms of absolute quality, players that I've just enjoyed watching, okay, his stats won't be up there because he wasn't here for long enough. But when Luis Suarez was at Liverpool, I just thought he was out of this world. Absolutely phenomenal player. So on pure, one-off type of games, I would have said he was right up there in the top 3 that I've watched. But certainly you've got to put Shearer and Henry way ahead of most.
Right, Ian Smith wants to know, Mo, who are your top 5 Liverpool strikers just based on talent at their best? Oof, tough one.
Wow. Top 5 Liverpool strikers. Well, let's go. I mean, Ian Rush, of course, he holds all the records. Yeah. He's just supremely fast and a great finisher. Left foot, right foot with his head. He was just brilliant. Of course, playing in a great team, but he was absolutely top class, and he was probably the scourge of my life growing up because I was an Everton fan and I used to hate it when he scored against Everton every 2 minutes, but then grew to love him, of course, and watched him training, and then got into the team just after he left, really. So I mean, you've got to say Ian Rush, and of course I'm going to probably miss out some great players because I can only talk about players that I've seen. Robbie Fowler springs to mind straight away. I was in the team for a long time, both Liverpool and England with Robbie. Again, just a supremely good finisher, a real pure striker of the ball, again with both feet. And again, for someone that's not so tall, great header of the ball. His timing of, his shots and his strikes, just the time, and he just had a real pure knack of hitting the ball really hard. And accurate as well. He was just a great finisher, Robbie. His movement was very good. He probably didn't have lightning pace, but he was instinctive. He was a great finisher. He had so much going for him, and just a great player. So Robbie would have to be in there with Rushy. Of course, Kenny Dalglish should have to say, one of the greatest players of all time for Liverpool. He has to go in. Yes, he was just before my time, really, but watching the clips of him, he was obviously just a great, no other words to say, he's just a great. And then you'd have to say Luis Suarez. He was only there, I don't know, how long was he, 2 or 3 years? But, I mean, wow, he was just phenomenal. Liverpool certainly, in my opinion, had him at the absolute peak of his powers. Again, he was playing with some tremendous players, namely Steven Gerrard, who struck up a great rapport with so many great strikers over the years. Myself and Stevie actually started together as 11-year-olds in the Liverpool team. So I just think he understands a striker and understands, how to get the best out of them and where their strengths are. And I think Luis Suarez benefited from that. But he was unbelievable. And I think as well, we mustn't forget Fernando Torres, because again, you forget, he went to Chelsea and okay, he wasn't great. And then even after that, there's no denying he wasn't at the peak of his powers like he was at Liverpool. Again, Liverpool probably had him in his absolute prime, playing alongside Steven Gerrard. And in those, that short period of time that he was at Liverpool as well, I mean, he was jaw-droppingly good. I mean, he was unbelievably good. So Liverpool have been blessed. I mean, I've just named 5 off the top of my head. I'm sure there's other great ones. Of course, I played alongside Emile Heskey, who was a terrific player for me, but I would have to leave him out of that list that I've just said. Suarez, Torres, Fowler, Dalglish and Rush, probably in my generation, they're the best 5.
On the back of that, Michael, like magic, the next question from Errol Davis says, I would ask Michael if he feels that this current Liverpool strike force is better than one of your partnerships at Liverpool. So, whether it was with Emile Heskey or you and Robbie Fowler, just say if it was you and Robbie Fowler, do you think this front 3, the current strike force, would emulate you two?
Well, yes, I do. I think this current strike force is probably the best we've seen, for a long time. It's very hard to compare because there's 3 now instead of what there used to be with 2. You'd have to say Dalglish and Rush was just sublime partnership. And you know what? You can't mention great attacking Liverpool sort of teams without saying the Suarez, Sturridge and Sterling 3. I mean, that was just staggeringly good at the time. And I know there was a debate not so long ago, which are the best 3. And I only think that I think individually that 3 were absolutely brilliant. I just think this current 3, a bit like the Liverpool team really, it just clicks and, could if you lifted, individual players and put them into other teams around the Premier League, would they be as good a players without each other? It's debatable and probably arguable that you would say not, because this team just gels so perfectly with each other. And I think that the attacking players benefit so much from the fullbacks that are real attacking type of players. The midfielders have a sort of a solid foundation. I just think everything gels so well. So to the eye, this three, probably beat most attacking units that we've seen over the years. But yeah, I would say it certainly works better than myself and Fowler or myself and Heskey. Just look at the results. They're staggering what they're doing.
Next question, Mo. Daniel Newhouse. It's a good question. Hi, Michael. I'm a season ticket holder at Anfield. You had everything a boy dreamed of at Liverpool. Hypothetically, if you could speak to a young Michael Owen pre-Madrid, would you advise him to stay or go?
Well, it's a question I've asked myself probably a million times. So it's it is one of those things. I mean, no matter what we all do in life, we all make big decisions in life. And, if I ask someone like Steven Gerrard, then, should you have gone, if you'd been asked to go here or there, do you regret it or do you not and whatever? And of course, he'll say no. And I will say no, really, because I don't think I wasn't pushed into I wasn't pressurised by the club. It was purely my decision. And I've said a million times it was such a hard decision, but I just thought at the time, if I say no, then I would be sitting doing this podcast with you saying, do you know what, Sav? At one point in my career, I could have gone to Real Madrid. And you would have been saying, why? With Zidane and you should have just tried it, Mo. You should have just tried it. And that's the overriding feeling I had, that I just thought I can come back to Liverpool, surely. I even spoke to Rick Parry at the time, the chief executive, and we almost had sort of a joking agreement that, after a year or two, I'd be back to my team. And, that's sort of how we left it. It was on great terms. So that was the only thing that made me think, do you know what, I've just got to try this. I've got to try playing in a different country, different language. Look at that team, look at that stadium. Give it a go. You won't regret it, in the future. Now, of course, I'd love to have won the Champions League the year after when all my mates were doing it in Istanbul. Of course I would have. Do I regret lots of things? Yes, I do. I'd love to have been a one-club man and like, the likes of Jamie Carragher. Of course I do. But also they look at me and they always say, what was Madrid like? What was this like? What was that like?
Yeah.
And I just don't think you can sit around just moping all your life. And that's the decision I made. And, I guess that if you give me my time again, I would have made the same decision, not knowing what was going to happen in the future.
Hi, Robbie. This is Ali. I wanted to ask Michael if he could go back in time. Would he have stayed in Liverpool? And if the answer is no, would he have wanted to go to another club besides Real Madrid, like Juventus or Milan? Thank you.
Well, the Italian League, I think you mentioned a couple of Italian teams there. The Italian League was huge. It was probably the biggest league as I was growing up. I was absolutely glued to, was it Gazzetta dello Sport or whatever it was, on Channel 4 with James Richardson presenting. Back in the day, I loved that, and watching Gazza playing out at Lazio, and of course David Platt played out there as well for a couple of different teams. So that was the strong league, but I think even though there was a lot of interest early on in my career, when I first came back from the World Cup, there was a lot of speculation, a lot of interest from Italy when I was young. But after that, it dried up a little bit. And as I say, then the Spanish league started taking over as probably the strongest league in the world. And that's why I guess, went to Real Madrid, because that was a very strong league. It's probably unlikely that I would have gone to Italy following that, because once I'd tried the experience of going abroad, then I was more than happy to have done it, sort of almost been there, got the T-shirt type of attitude, and I wanted to come back to the Premier League. But Italy was certainly an option early on in my career, but at that stage, I just wanted to play for Liverpool. I was still young. I still hadn't really proven myself consistently in the Premier League for a number of years. I'd only had a couple of years at it, so it was there, it was an option, but I don't ever think it was too realistic.
Next one, Mo. Andres from Argentina asks, what did you think at that moment when you scored past Roa playing against Argentina at the World Cup? What a goal.
Well, I mean, it sounds stupid. I was 18 at the time. You're in a World Cup. You're playing against Argentina. You know, when I look back now, okay, I think, cool, that's a bit mad, you know, when you think of all the great England strikers at the time, the Sheringhams, the Shearers, the Ian Wrights, the Les Ferdinands, you know, the list goes on, the Robbie Fowlers, the Andy Coles, the Stan Collymore, there's loads of them. And to be playing in the England team at 18 was it all is a staggering achievement when I look back. But at the time, I wasn't, that was just what I expected. That's just what I did. I went onto the pitch every single game thinking I was going to score goals like that because I could run faster than everyone else. I could beat players. I was cool in front of goal. They were things that I could do, so it wasn't a surprise. It was more surprising coming back and thinking, why are people almost surprised that I did that? I got into the Premier League when I was 17 and won the Golden Boot when I was 7, with all those strikers that we're talking about. And then again at 18, I mean, I was doing it in front of people's eyes every week at that point. So I was that's just me, that's just the player I am. Why are you surprised type of attitude. Now, of course, I look back at it and think, that's a strange thing, being 18 and doing what I was doing. But hard to put into words what I was thinking to answer the question. Whenever I got the ball, I was thinking goal. In fact, when I actually went back and passed me the ball, I was actually thinking, hold the ball up, we're under pressure, hold the ball up and just bring someone into play. But then in the corner of my eye, I saw the Argentinian midfielder just creeping past as if to almost preempt me taking a touch and maybe sort of nick in front of me. So last minute, take a touch past him, he's too close to me and you'll sprint away from him. And so it was a last minute thought. And then, of course, when I lifted my head up, then there was only one thought is, goal.
What a goal.
Goal. That was that.
And that goal against Argentina, Mo, was that your favourite tournament you played in?
I probably think it has to be. I mean, that one or Japan, the next World Cup was a good tournament as well. It finished on a bit of a whimper, We got beat by the eventual winners, Brazil, in the quarterfinals. But the way we went out, that was hard to take, I think, because, we didn't play well, put it that way. We went 1-0 up. I scored early on. And I was half injured through that competition as well. So even though we had a great team and I thought we could go on to win it, I think I'd have to say the 98 World Cup was, if I could live one again, then it would be that one, yeah.
Chris Campbell asks, apart from that England goal against Argentina, what is the second best goal you have ever scored?
Well, to be fair, or to be honest, the Argentina goal was probably the second best goal I ever scored. The best goal I ever scored was actually on television, but not many people have seen it.
I've seen it.
Have you seen it?
Victory Shield.
Yeah.
Victory Shield.
That's it. Yeah.
Go on, explain to people, Mo.
Well, we were playing Scotland, and it was at St James's Park up in Newcastle, and we had to win the Victory Shield. It was England under 15s. Scotland had just equalised, and we basically took the kick-off, and there was a lad that was playing in midfield called Kenny Lunt, who had a career at Crewe, and he just tapped the ball in front of me and just said, go on. And I just basically ran through right from the kickoff, ran through, and it was quite similar to the Argentina goal in a way, because it was where on that side, basically a similar angle, right foot, smacked it into the far top corner, but only this goal, I took on another couple of people more than I did in the Argentina goal. So that was probably the best goal I ever scored.
People listen to this pod, where do you reckon they'll be able to find us? On YouTube, Mo?
I guess it will be, yeah, but the problem is Sky TV that were covering it at the time, they were still showing the replay of the Scotland goal, so they didn't see me take on the first player or two. So, but yeah, I'm sure on YouTube you'll be able to see it. Cameron
Gray asked, who was the best midfielder you have played with? And you've played with some greats.
Wow. Unfortunately, I never played with you, Sav, so I can't.
No, I was going to say that.
But I'll name a few names that might make you stand up, I guess. Zidane was, technically the most gifted player. He was almost born to have a ball at his feet. Even when he ran, it was just the ball was constantly at the same sort of distance away from him. Every sort of left foot, right foot. It was everything he did was just felt as if it was natural. It was almost the ball was a byproduct. If he did a move, the ball just went with him. He was just so silky and so talented. It was frightening. He was big and strong, and if he did a turn and burst away, he had real pace and strength. And of course, vision, goal scoring. he was a brilliant player, and probably the one player when I joined Real Madrid that I just couldn't stop watching. In training, I just thought he was God. In many ways. Again, someone with so much talent. You've got to mention Paul Scholes. He's just so talented. It's scary. I mean, in training you get to see it. In games, yes, of course, he had an amazing career. But when you're seeing him up close, the disguise in his play, he's just... Put it this way, if you're with Paul Scholes in a five-a-side or a possession game, you win. End of story. He would just dictate games. He was just an amazing player. So I'd have to sort of give Scholes a mention when you're talking about that. But I think if I was going into a World Cup final tomorrow and I needed one player that I've played alongside to play alongside me and think, right, this is going to give us the best chance of winning, I'd pick Steven Gerrard.
Steven Gerrard?
As I say, from 11 years old, we've played alongside each other. We just had this telepathic understanding between ourselves. He had absolutely everything. I mean, he was bigger than anyone, stronger than anyone, tougher than anyone, faster than anyone. He had vision. He scored goals. He was the most, brilliant striker of the ball. He's just, I mean, he had everything. What didn't Steven Gerrard have? He was just a phenomenal player. And I think if I was going into a cup final tomorrow, and the first name I'd be thinking I want on my team was him.
That follows on nicely, Mo, to Big Sign 19's question. Which other four players that you have played with would you have playing alongside you in your five-a-side team?
Right then. Well, in goal, I think I would have to have Van der Sar.
Yes.
I'd put him in. He was absolutely brilliant. Iker Casillas was good at Madrid. David Seaman was very, very good at England when I first got into the England team. But I think, Van der Sar would be the goalkeeper. He was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And then it's tricky. I mean, how many good centre halves are there? There's so many good centre halves. I mean, Carragher and Hippier were extremely talented. John Terry was amazing. I think Rio Ferdinand was a Rolls Royce. I mean, he'd probably be the defender. I think, absolutely. So as I say, Rolls Royce of a player. Where do you go ahead of this?
So Van der Sar and Rio. Gerrard, that's three.
Yeah,
yourself.
Gerrard gets in. I'm not putting myself in. No,
you've got to.
I'm going to put myself on the bench. I'm going to go. I'm going to go Van der Sar in goal. I'm going to go Rio as the lone defender. I'm going to go Stevie Gerrard and Zidane as the midfielders, and I'm going to go the real Ronaldo up front.
Oh wow, mate! What was he like, real Ronaldo?
Well, I played towards the end of his career, didn't I? So he was physically struggling with his knees. I think at the time he'd had a lot of surgery and things like that, but even though he had all that, I mean, he still was Real Madrid centre forward. I mean, one of the best teams in the world, and he was still banging in the goals left, right and centre. His pace, his skill, that step over, I don't care how many times he does it, you still fall for it every single time. And he's got it in the locker to do 3-4 step overs at 100 mile an hour. I mean, the talent is just staggering. And, of course, the best of him I can only watch on DVDs and past clips, but to have played alongside him for a season and scored a load of goals alongside him was a real honour. What a man as well, proper nice fella.
That could be the best ever five-a-side team, right? Kieran Snell asks, you've spoken a lot about struggling to adapt to life in Spain during your time at Real Madrid. Did you speak to the other English players there about it? Woodgate, Beckham, did they encounter similar problems?
Yeah, no, it was interesting in Madrid. I mean, I probably was okay. And certainly on the football pitch, I loved it. I felt as if I settled in great. It was off the field that it was very difficult, especially with my wife, I think. We had one young daughter. My wife couldn't drive on the wrong side of the road. As well, when you join, it's around the time, in August, there's nothing happening in Spain. Everybody goes on their holidays and things like that. So trying to get into a house was difficult. Trying to get anything done was very difficult. So I was training. Then, of course, Ronaldo loved 9 holes of golf, so he was asking me if we'd go play golf afterwards and things like that. And I'm like, oh, God. I knew that my wife was sat at home doing nothing, and there's only so many times you can walk down to the local park and push your daughter on the swing. And I knew she was struggling. I knew she wouldn't come home, so I could pick them up and take them to the zoo or do whatever. And I just felt as if I was a bit being torn between, I've got to become mates and ingratiate myself within the team, but I know that my wife's at home and upset. She's got no friends over here. She doesn't talk the language. We're sat in a hotel room. It's just, and that went on for about 4 months until we could actually get into a house. And I know it doesn't sound that problematic, but it was very difficult for her to settle. And when your family life isn't what it should be, then it was quite hard to settle myself as well. So, but in terms of football, wow, I absolutely loved it, and the lads were great, and yeah, I felt as if I took to it like a duck to water.
Dylan Evans, a Liverpool fan, asks, did you ever think about the consequences of going to Manchester United before signing? Although I forgive him.
Of course I did. Of course I did. I mean, I think, if I flip it on its head and I ask the same question, or I state where I was at the time, I mean, I was leaving, when I left Real Madrid, we were so close to getting back to Liverpool, but as everyone knows, and I've wrote in my book and everything else, Liverpool had put in an 8 million bid to buy me back, but Newcastle came in and put 16 million down, and the Real Madrid president at the time said to me, we'll let you go. If you want to go back to the Premier League, we'll let you go, but we can't let you go back to Liverpool unless they match the bid from Newcastle. Now, of course, there was such a big discrepancy in the fees, it was just impossible. So no matter what we tried, no matter how much I stated, no way am I going anywhere bar Liverpool and all the rest of it, I just couldn't do anything. So as everyone knows, I signed for Newcastle, but I got it in my contract that at any stage I could sign for Liverpool in each summer for a set fee. I then had 4 years at Newcastle, which, contrary to what a lot of people say, I had a great time, loved it up there, had a house up there, scored a few goals, but did get injured for an 18-month period, which hurt it. But then I was leaving Newcastle, and of course the first thing I did is phone Cara, said speak to Brendan Rodgers, and Cara got back to me. He said no, he's about to sign someone. I think it was David Ngog at the time. But he had already had some great players in the team, and basically they didn't need another centre forward. So what do you want me to do at that point? Yeah. My agent then spoke to virtually every club on the planet to see who was interested, and the options were Hull City, Everton, and Manchester United. So you can imagine my thought process at the time: go to Everton. Get hated, go to Man United, be hated as well, or go to Hull. And with all due respect to Hull, they were near the bottom of the league. I just didn't think that was an appropriate move. So it was, what do you want me to do? Is, as soon as I heard Man United were in for me, then I thought, well, obviously first choice would be Liverpool to go back there. But if Liverpool aren't going to want me, and these are all my options, then wow, Manchester United in the Champions League, the champions of I don't have to move. I know loads of the lads. It's just, it's just a brilliant move. And no way am I going to sit here to appease certain people and say, oh no, I shouldn't have done this or should. Absolutely. I couldn't believe my luck when Manchester United came in for me. I mean, here's me sort of regressing as a player in my own mind, and still the champions of England wanted to sign me. I'm absolutely buzzing when they asked me.
And #amped19 asks, please ask Michael how he feels about the fact that he won the Premier League for Manchester United and not Liverpool.
These questions are getting naughtier and naughtier, aren't they? No, I mean, don't get me wrong. When I was growing up, winning the Premier League for Liverpool would have been my massive dream or winning the Champions League with Liverpool would have been a huge dream. As it is, I had to settle for winning quite a few trophies with Liverpool, but none of them being the Premier League, which was unfortunate. Of course, it's great to to see that they're going to win the Premier League, or hopefully going to win the Premier League, depending on what's going to happen now. But yeah, of course, winning the Premier League with Liverpool would have been a dream come true.
Jamie Salter.
Which manager had the biggest influence on your career? Thanks.
Oh, that's a good question. I think I'd have to say Gerard Houllier. I mean, Roy Evans gave me my debut, and I loved Roy Evans. I thought he was a great man and great football man. Glenn Hoddle, I thought, was absolutely exceptional. But because you only go away with England once a blue moon, you don't really get a good flavour of, a manager, the day-to-day ways they do things. So I think Gerard Houllier in my early years, we went, I guess, from being a club at Liverpool that were still, I think football was going through a transition at the time. We were still drinking pints, a few days before a game and going out, partying if we won and things like that. And I just think that Gerard Houllier came in and professionalised Liverpool Football Club. It needed doing at the time. We were looking around us, and Arsene Wenger were doing incredible things at Arsenal. And you just, at the time, you're thinking, wow, we're falling behind here. And I think Gerard Houllier came to Liverpool at exactly the right time for the club, and probably for me as well. And I think he probably had the biggest influence on my career.
John Ryan asked, is there one particular player he would like to have played with, irrespective of nationality? And you play with some greats.
Yeah, I guess, I played against him, but I never, I think Messi would probably be the one person that springs to mind in terms of great players that you think it wouldn't have been great to be on the end of a few of his passes, put it that way. I mean, how many goals could you score playing alongside him? So I think played against him but not played alongside him. So that would have been probably a dream come true, yeah.
Messi, wow, Mo. You were on the bench in your 2008 Champions League final to see Messi's display at Wembley.
Yeah, that's right. He was magnificent in that game. I mean, Barcelona were just at the peak of their powers, weren't they, around that time? And yeah, to see it up close and personal, of course, I didn't want him to play well, but on that big pitch, it just suited him down to the ground, and he was brilliant that day, sadly.
The final audio question was sent in by 12-year-old Josh.
Hi Michael, my name's Josh and I'm 12 and I'm from Coventry. My question to you is, throughout your 17-year career, how did you deal with the media? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, really. I think throughout my career, the press were very, very involved in football. I think nowadays the press has very much changed. You've got your own social media channels. You can create your own image, exactly how you want to come across. But back in my day, I think you were almost beholden to what the press were going to say about you. And of course, your actions, your words would affect that image that you're portraying, but you were certainly scrutinised by the press a lot more than you are nowadays. And I think the press were very different, let's say. They would give unbelievable praise if you did well, but they could also ruin somebody's career stroke life, I guess. I mean, it was never rare to see a footballer on the front page of a newspaper for doing something else other than, let's say, playing football. So the press certainly were far more intrusive back in those days than they are now. And players, as I say, are free to generate their own image or whatever they want now throughout their own channels. They're their own media stream in many ways. So very different over the years.
Baden Gillian Mo from South Africa. Hi Sav, I'm Baden, a football journalist from South Africa. I think a massive legacy left by Michael Owen is that in today's game, managers carefully introduce young players and take care not to cause burnout. I think the careful management of younger players and the, in commas, red zone approach adopted by physios to avoid injuries all comes from Michael Owen. It's clear that Liverpool overplayed Michael, where I think he played constantly for a number of years, leading to the injuries that diminished his career. So my question is, does he agree with this, and why doesn't he have more of an indignation towards how he was handled?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, Sav, and I don't think we'll ever know the answer to it, really. If you talk to Sir Alex Ferguson, he's convinced that I overplayed and all the rest of it, which is fine, and I absolutely respect his opinion. He thinks that while I was, scoring goals for Liverpool, and then in the summer I'd be whisked off to play for England under 20s, and then I'd be straight back in the Liverpool first team. But at the time, that's just what happened. I guess that Liverpool needed me, and I suppose Liverpool needed me more than certain players were needed for Manchester United at the time, because they had such a great squad. They could bring Giggsy in and out, or they could bring all these different players, whereas we were trying to catch. We didn't have the luxury of having a massive squad and being able to rotate. So, but one thing I would say on the flip side of that is that my dad was a professional footballer. My brothers are lightning fast. My sisters are lightning fast. Now, my dad wasn't overplayed as a kid, but in his career, later on in his career, he had hamstring injuries, he had thigh injuries and groin injuries. And, I mean, all I think is that I was really, really fast, and I was born in a certain way, and genetically, that's the way I'm built. I was quick, and I just think that no matter how much I played, I was always susceptible to getting muscle injuries, because it's happened throughout my family's history. We're all lightning fast, and that's almost the byproduct of being quick. So, I tend to think I would have had muscle injuries regardless, whether I played 100 or 10 games personally. I do take Sir Alex Ferguson's point and the chap from South Africa that asked the question. But my own opinion is that I would have always picked up muscle injuries, because that's just the way I'm built.
Brilliant answer. Brilliant. There's just a couple more, Mo. Andy Bradley asked, what's the one thing you've taken away from the game with you?
I think that's a good question.
Good question,
wow.
Yeah.
It is a good question. I don't even know how to answer it. Well, I think there's so much. Listen, it's been my life, hasn't it? It's been our life, professional football, whatever you've had, it's given you a living, it's given you memories, it's given you friends, it's given you all these things over time. I think if I could take one thing, I think it's memories. Okay, you've got little symbols that jog your memory, whether they be medals or match balls or boots or whatever it is that jog your memories, but nobody can ever take away what you've achieved. Everyone can have an opinion whether you should be in this list or that list, or you should have won that trophy or not, or whatever it might be, but it doesn't matter what you've actually done it, and those memories no one can take away from you. And if I had to pick one, I think it would be the FA Cup final for Liverpool. Just that whole day
against Arsenal.
Yeah, against Arsenal. As a kid, the FA Cup was everything, wasn't it? We all used to get the family round, have a big barbecue, and it would be a family event. The FA Cup would be the big thing of the whole footballing year. And I would be in the front garden and dribbling round our tree in the front garden, and then kicking the ball into the garage and running around the estate shouting Michael Owen's just scored in the FA Cup final to win the... So to actually do that and do it twice, to score 2 goals against... And the way it happened, 1-0 down against the team that basically were the Invincibles. They were just an amazing team. And anyone that scores a goal in the last minute, everyone knows the feeling of it is just and then to score 2 and to obviously snatch the trophy from Arsenal's grasp and the celebrations, everything. It was just the absolute dream day, and if I could live one day again, it would have been that one. That's
what I was like, Mo, when I grew up, the same as you, but I continued throughout my professional career to watch every final from home as well. So, Mo, our final question is from Scotch Egg Greg. What's your favourite pie? He calls you Mick. Is it the mince onion? Also, if you were going to have a pie, would it be with chips, mash, mushy peas, or a combination of all three? Assuming gravy goes without saying.
I've never been asked this question. Right. Well, everyone knows that I like horses, and our biggest owner is he makes pies up in Wigan, so I've got to say one of his pies, otherwise he'll take his horses from me. I would have to say chicken, like a chicken and mushroom or chicken and bacon, and definitely not mashed potato. I'm probably going with chicken and mushroom with chips and mushy peas. There you have it. What about yours?
Mine is chicken and mushroom, chicken and mushroom. And you mentioned the horses there, Mo. For people listening to this, can you name us one horse that's got a bright future that's in your stable?
Oh, wow. Well, hopefully we get to race. It's a little bit like football at the moment. We don't know when the season's going to start. I think we've got one sort of star at the moment called Angel Alexander. He won the Air Gold Cup last year. So, in fact, I think you were there, weren't you?
Yes, I was there.
So he won the Air Gold Cup. Unfortunately, I was working. Some of us have to work, Robbie, but yeah, he's a good horse, and hopefully he'll be competing in some of the big sprints this season. Yeah.
Mo, thank you so much for your time, mate. That was absolutely brilliant. Before you go, though, on the next podcast, we are speaking to another legend, Paul Scholes. I want to kick off that podcast with your question. So what is the one question you'd like to ask Scholesy? Ask it and we'll play it to him.
Okay, Scholesy, so the question that I'd like to ask you as obviously aside from me, who was the striker that you think that you had the best relationship with, that almost you were on the same wavelength as and you enjoyed playing with the most?
Thanks for listening. Keep an eye on social media for other players we are speaking to in this series for your chance to ask a question. The Savage Social is a Shooting Shark production for BBC Radio 5 Live and BBC Sounds.